Hello, it's 9 p.m. in Cairo, our time for top stories, and first we preview on latest developments and top news items from Libya. Foreign Minister Mohammed Al-Dairi called on Arab countries to activate the Joint Arab Defense Treaty of launching airstrikes against terrorist Daesh group in Libya, stressing the seriousness of the terrorist group on all the neighboring countries as well as Europe. During the emergency meeting of Arab League Council at the level of delegates to discuss the situation in Libya, Al-Dairi noted that the Arab Libyan armed forces are ill-equipped to cope with the terrorist Daesh group. Moreover, he stressed that the terrorists hit military personnel and civilians in Libya, calling for activating the Security Council resolution, calling for supporting the legitimate authorities in Libya to confront the armed groups including Daesh and Ansar al-Sharia. The parliament passed a resolution to allow the interim government to ask the Arab League to launch specific strikes targeting terrorist Daesh group in Libya during the Arab League session at the level of delegates in Cairo today. Parliament member Saleh Galma expressed fear of parliament members of expansion of this terrorist group, the matter that forced him to issue a decision calling for Arab intervention against these extremist groups that have become virtually a threat to the region and the world as a whole. In the meantime, the parliament decided to form a committee to follow up the situation in search and fact-finding there. Moreover, the parliament urged member states of the United Nations to fight terrorism in Libya by all means and in coordination with the interim government in particular. A source noted that the 200 families were displaced from Sirte in the past 3 days due to terrorist Daesh attack on the district number 3 in the city. The source also confirmed that the terrorist group lost 60 of its elements, those who were killed during confrontations with people of the city, while 70 citizens were killed, those who refused to bow to the extremists. Moreover, the source noted that extremist Daesh group kidnapped 24 young people from residents of the city who were taken to an unknown destination. He also pointed out that the terrorist Daesh group set up checkpoints in the 1st and 3rd districts of Sirte, adding that the extremist group broke into several houses. The source further said that foreign elements from Tunisia, Algeria and Africa were within ranks of extremists. And still about Libya, EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini said today that terrorist Daesh group is a threat to all Libyans, the matter that requires all political parties to accelerate the achievement of a political agreement and form a government of national reconciliation. Mogherini added that the European Union is ready to support the government of national reconciliation once it's formed, so that the Libyan people will be able to benefit quickly from this step towards achieving peace and stability. The European position came to coincide with meetings of the Arab League in Cairo under fear of supporting Libya by Arab parties, the matter that will hinder the EU plan to impose a settlement that UN envoy Bernardine Leon is currently seeking to pass. The EU is keen to drag the various parties to refrain from arming the army under any pretext. And from Benghazi wounded people, a medical source at Al-Gala Hospital confirmed that the hospital received 4 wounded members of the armed forces during the past 2 days due to fighting in the city of Benghazi. A medical source said that the wounded people suffered moderate injuries. All of them were from Lethi district. The source noted that one of the injured people left the hospital after receiving first aid, adding that the hospital had not received any martyrs during the past 2 days. And now we transfer to the Arab arena, especially Yemen, where planes from a Saudi-led coalition hit Yemen's Red Sea port of Hodeidah today. And officials there said the raids destroyed cranes and warehouses in the main entry point for aid supplies to the north of the country. Hodeidah, controlled by Houthi forces, has become a vocal point of effort to resupply the Arab state, battered by 5 months of war that has killed over 4,300 people. Edward Santiago Santiago of aid group Save the Children said the bombing of Hodeidah port is a final straw. The impact of these later airstrikes will be felt more strongly by innocent children and families. Officials said the raids destroyed ports for grains and also hit warehouses, bringing war to a halt. There was no information on what was in the warehouses. Brigadier General Ahmed Asiri, a spokesman for the Saudi coalition, said the strikes on Hodeidah were directed not as a civilian port, but a base where the Houthis had deployed anti-ship weapons. And to Syria, the United Nations said today that the civilian death toll from a Syrian government airstrike on a market in Douma, northeast of Damascus, is reported to be 111, with at least 2,200 injured. A Syrian military source said that the Air Force launched airstrikes on Sunday on the rebel-held town of Douma and the nearby area of Harsta against an insurgent group following recent attacks on government-held Damascus. The Syrian political opposition group, the National Coalition for Syrian Revolutionary and Opposition Forces, said the attack on Douma aimed to inflict as many civilian casualties as possible. Robert Colville, spokesman for the UN Human Rights Agency, told a news conference in Geneva that the outrageous bombing of a busy local marketplace in the center of Douma in the eastern Ghouta area of rural Damascus has deepened the intense suffering of civilian population in the area, which has been under siege by government forces since 2013. And about the Daesh crisis, and now in Turkey, terrorist Daesh group published a video calling Turkish people to rebel and fight against the rule of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and help conquer Istanbul, the SIT monitoring service said today. Speaking in Turkish, the extremist Daesh militant accused Erdogan of selling the country to Crusaders and the atheist Kurdistan Workers' Party PKK, and has allowed Turkish bases to be used by the Crusaders and the United States just to keep his post. Turkey agreed last month to open its strategically important bases to the US-led coalition, a major policy change after years of reluctance to take a frontline role against the extremist Daesh group pressing on its border. It has also launched 3 airstrikes against terrorist Daesh group inside Syria and detained thousands of people in what Prime Minister Ahmed Dawood called synchronized efforts against terrorism. And about Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin today blamed the Ukrainian government for the latest upsurge in fighting between Kiev forces and Russia's backed rebels in East Ukraine. Putin told reporters, "We are now seeing this conflict escalation, and the blame lies not with the Donbass militia, but with the rival side," he said, referring to the rebel-held Ukrainian region, and added that he hoped there will not be full-scale direct clashes. Putin added, "Our task is to minimize the losses we will have by the time we reach that peace." More than 6,500 people have been killed in the conflict, which erupted in April 2014 after Russia annexed Crimea in reaction to the fall of a Moscow-backed president in Kiev and through its support behind separatists in the east. Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula in February 2014 after the ousting of pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych in Kiev, triggering condemnation of the West. And about the crisis in South Sudan, Uganda told South Sudan's warring factions today to put their egos aside and make peace a day after President Salva Kiir refused to sign a deal to end a 20-month-old conflict. The blunt words from a regional power underline growing exasperations among African and global leaders over a string of broken ceasefire and accords in the world's newest nation. Washington has threatened sanctions if no deal is reached. Kiir asked for another 15 days of discussions, shrugging off pressure from regional mediators to meet a Monday deadline for a deal. A spokesman told journalists in Juba today the pact on the table had been a sell-out without going into details. A procession of African leaders flew in to join the negotiations in Addis Ababa and pressed for an agreement, including Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni. And about the Mediterranean and the migration crisis, Italian police said today they had arrested 8 suspected human traffickers after 49 migrants were found suffocated in the hold of a packed fishing boat in the Mediterranean last weekend. The third mass fatality this month in the area's ongoing migrants crisis is believed to have been caused when the victims inhaled engine fumes after the boat began taking on water. A prosecutor speaking in Catania says the suspects are being held in jail on suspicion of homicide and favoring clandestine immigration. The 8 are believed to have kicked the heads of migrants as they tried to get out of the boat's hold when the air became unbreathable with fumes from the motor. In photographs released by the police, nationalities of those arrested were given as 4 Libyans, 3 Moroccans and 1 Syrian minor, whose photograph was not released. The victim and 312 survivors were brought to Catania on Monday. The bodies of the 49 were placed inside a United Nations container on board a Norwegian Coast Guard vessel and then lowered to shore when the ship arrived in Catania's port. My audience, that is the wrap-up of our top stories for today. For much more, you can check our website www.الكرامة.tv. Thanks very much for being with us. See you next time. My greeting, رانيا البليدى.